In today's environment, every day is a new day. In fact, everything, everywhere, all at once. I don't know if anybody saw that Academy Award-winning movie where we go from sanity to insanity to floating hands, which, is it weird or is it just our new norm? Our next panel is going to share what's going on in their world and what impact it might have on members and what we're going to do about it. Please welcome first our moderator, James Gukeisen, the Director of Leagues and Advocacy at Trellance. Hello, James. I'll pass him on. Mike Beall, Chief Experience Officer at CU Strategic Planning. Pablo DeFilippi, the EVP at Inclusiv. Miriam Martinez, President and CEO at Border Federal Credit Union. And Miriam de Dios Woodword, President and CEO of De Dios Consulting. Let's take it away, James.
Thank you, Brandy. Good morning, everyone. And if you don't mind, I like to stand when I speak, so bear with me. Wow, they gave me a microphone? Goodness. Thank you to our panelists, first and foremost, for being up here and volunteering your time, your effort, your intelligence, and your experience. To the group, a couple things to kick us off, right? When they asked me to moderate this panel, I wanted to do a thing for this group, right? I wanted to say a couple things where hopefully half of you will agree with the premise and the other half of you will think maybe I'm a fool and I shouldn't be up here, because we are really good talkers, but perhaps the credit union movement needs to be a much more effective group of communicators with our members, our regulators, and our advocacy teams. So what I mean by that is our members, right? We don't know what we don't know. 20 years ago, we were talking about the hours that our branches are open. 10 years ago, we were talking about how we're going to leverage our communication channels, our contact center, our email, and how we're going to effectively engage them, as close to 24/7 as possible. Today, we're struggling to effectively communicate with our next generation of borrowers and our next generation of savers because they're communicating with us at a pace with which we're not accustomed to listening. And I'm talking about data, right? That's my background. That's what I pivoted to. I know that every day, that today specifically, your members, based on who's in this group, will communicate with you, have 100 million conversations with you. They absolutely will, through the use of your core, your lending platform, your credit, your debit card platform. Your members are constantly talking to you, especially your young members. Are you listening? Are you being effective communicators? Are you being champions for them? That's the question, right? We don't know what we don't know. Do you know what your members are saying to you right now? Do you understand it? I'm going to guess some of us don't. You don't have to raise your hands. Say, I don't. That's fine. Yeah, I'm very ignorant, and I'm okay with that. The other piece is, are we communicating properly about the importance of our guiding principles? We stand on the shoulders of giants. That needs to be acknowledged, right? My personal experience, the people that have trained me and taught me, have put me in a position, have put many of us in a position where we're talking about compensation packages and we're talking about how we're going to best serve our members in between vacations and PTO. All those benefits came from individuals who sacrificed and risked literally their lives. Individuals that had to have armed guards to provide financial services to women. I'm looking at one right now, right? Let's not forget that. And then Brandy mentioned, and this is the last piece, and I'll pass it on, right? For the challenge of, do we know what we know is, do we know that 11,000 volunteer board members have left the movement since Jim Nussel started running ACU, Arcuna? And I like him. He's a DE, great guy. But are we communicating our fears and our anxieties and the things that we need to address to keep volunteerism in the movement? So with that, no stress, right? Mike, what do you know?
Well, good morning. I'm a child of credit union parents. So my parents met at a credit union. And so, it's
Tell us
part.
more.
Yeah, well, I wasn't conceived at the credit union. Is that too much? Or at least I think so. Maybe I need to ask. But what I will tell you is, I think you know me to be both maybe that now, but maybe you know me to be a political person. But I'm not going to be political today. Although I will say this, I think no matter where you sit, we're in a master class of anxiety. This administration is trying to break up what has come before it, whether you agree with it or disagree with that. So if our members are in that, we've got to figure out, are we relevant? I loved that question from the first panel. Are we relevant? I work, in the CDFI land, where we try to really look at resources for credit unions. We really look to try to help credit unions really focus on low to moderate income consumers. We're focused on that, but we are now facing, with cuts to potentially to Medicaid. We are looking at cuts to VA benefits, cuts to Social Security. The safety net that we've all as a country looked at is in jeopardy. And are we even ready with products and services to do it? Are we prepared in any way to help folks? Are we helping folks in the 20% of folks that receive Medicaid now? I look at this and say that relevance is in question. I am a board member on a $90 million credit union, DCFCU. I enjoy my time there. It is frustrating, and we're also a CDFI, and we have won more than $9 million in the last 7 years. We're prepared in some ways with resources, but my challenge to you in this room, and I see it every day in conversations with credit unions, is do you actually know how to make an organic loan? Do you know how to make an organic loan? So many credit unions are buying loans to fill their lending. I ask the question, I think it is SOS. This is your staff. Do they have the expertise? Do they have the experience? Do you allow them to say yes to members and their loans? I think this is a crisis that we're going to learn about over the next several years in a way that means we've got to not only navigate what's going on, but we've got to also figure out whether we have the products and services, loans being a significant part of that, but not the only part of it. Because if we don't have the right products to bring in deposits, I sat with my own board and said, look, I'm not going to simply vote for raising our deposit rates if we don't have products that are going to bring in new deposits. We raised the rates and deposits went down. We didn't have the products, or we haven't explained them well enough to our members. So I don't know whether I've said something offensive or not, but do you know how to make a loan? I'm a lawyer. I don't know how to make a loan. I've made one loan in my credit union career, and I was forced to do it early on by my, my first CEO. She believed every credit union employee needed to learn how to make a loan. And I learned at least to do one, but I think that's an issue. My second issue for your thought is we talk so much about collaboration. Blah! by the way, my four-letter word, my cuss word, based on my parents, bank. Bank was a four-letter word to my parents. That's my cuss word. But when I'm talking about collaboration, I think credit unions do a, at best, moderate, and at worst, terrible job of being collaborators or partners in communities. Where are your relationships with communities? At CU Strategic Planning, one of the things that we do is really work on community economic summits. What is a community economic summit? That is where you stop going to the Chamber of Commerce and participating. Keep doing it, but that's not leadership. Leadership in a community economic summit is inviting every nonprofit in your community to get together. Those folks don't get to go or don't go to the Chamber of Commerce. Bring those nonprofits together. And you know what you do for the first couple of hours? Listen. Listen to them talk about the problems they are trying to address, the problems that they are working on with their constituencies. It doesn't matter how large or small they are, but bring them together, because I guarantee you one of the biggest problems they will identify is that they don't have and don't know of a safe place for people to save and a great place to borrow. And if you put all of those folks together, you can build a pipeline of membership growth. Because I'm telling you, indirect loans are not new members, and membership growth, if we can't get bigger than, get busy living or get busy dying is my phrase to this. And growth, membership growth for me is a real challenge for credit unions. I will tell you, when I started on our board over 10 years ago, we were more than 10,000 members, and we're now 9,000 members. What happened? What are we not doing right? I will tell you, we struggle, we fight it, we're working on it. We're working to figure it out. But these community economic summits, this being part of the community, bringing community together, is to me so important. And it's going to be even more important in this master class of anxiety and chaos that we're in. And so I'm looking forward to more conversation, one, on being true lenders that does your staff have that capacity to say yes, to figure out what someone needs and to help them through it? And then, are you bringing in a community groups that can help you grow and that you can provide the plug-in to actually seeing forward in helping nonprofits and other organizations to help build community. So yes, let's all be collaborative together, but too often we talk in this echo chamber of talking to each other and not being a leader in community. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing your wisdom.
So to your question about do we know how to make loans, the other side of that question is that we have a whole market. More than 100 million people who are basically outside the financial mainstream. So on one side, you're saying, oh, we went from 10,000 members to now 9,000. The country population has grown. The number of people who are unbanked and underbanked has grown exponentially. And this existential crisis that is unfolding right in front of us is going to accelerate that. So one question for you all is to think about what does it mean when we talk about poverty? Because what I'm hearing on the news now is that everyone has the same access, everyone is equal, right? And the reality is that no, there have been efforts to address those inequalities in the marketplace, and those efforts are being systematically eliminated. What that's going to create is more need and more people struggling because they won't have access to equitable financial services. And if we don't know how to make loans in that market, we're going to be even less irrelevant. So one thought is we have to go back to basics. We have to remember how we serve our members. And yes, digital channels are great, but it's not the only way that you connect with these communities. So I want you to remember that we have a whole country within this country that has no access to the financial mainstream. And that's our role, right? The first credit union in this country was created when? In 1908. By whom? French-Canadian immigrants that came to New Hampshire. For what? For work. And what happened to them? They didn't speak the language. How many people today don't speak the language and don't have access to the financial mainstream? Don't have access to credit unions? That's our market. That's our responsibility. That's the reason we came to be in the first place. And if we walk away from that market, we walk away from who we are. Poverty is something that everyone doesn't want to be associated with. We're all middle class in this country. Do you know that? Everyone is middle class. True. Because poverty has this stigma to it. And we blame people for being poor. And especially now we're hearing that a lot more. You know, if you're poor, it's your fault. And guess what? Poor people pay more for everything. I always say this, you know, it's expensive to be poor. It's so expensive that people can't afford to be poor. Think about that. You know, and here we are with this existential crisis, ignoring a huge population out there that we should be serving. We can do this. We should be doing this. And going back to something that Brandy said at the beginning about the disinformation that we are being inundated with, one thing that really makes me cuss is the fact that credit unions really can tell right from wrong, hopefully. You know, and I tell you two things on that respect. My organization, Inclusiv, was awarded last year $1.8 billion from EPA to provide grants to credit unions. It was a long process. It was a transparent process. And guess what? We are in implementation, full implementation, talking to EPA almost every day. Everything on one level is incredibly smooth. But then we're just hearing from the news and Twitter, you know, criminal investigations. We're hearing all this noise that has nothing to do with the work. And you wonder, can we tell truth from lies here? And I want you to really think about that, because these are resources that we're getting for our purpose. We can get to market that banks can't get to. Otherwise, banks wouldn't receive these resources. The second thing is immigrants. You know, we're hearing a lot about this, you know, mass deportation, you know, what's going to happen. These people who don't deserve to be here, right? These people are our neighbors. These people came during many years. That this is not a recent thing. And what really makes me proud is that we're hearing from credit unions today more than ever that they're standing by. They will continue serving immigrants. They will continue providing loans to people who have ITINs, for instance. They will continue to provide access, because why? Because we haven't been told to do something different. You know, we hear all this news, you know, oh, this is illegal, this is illegal. There's nothing in the financial system that says that serving an immigrant is illegal. So I just want you guys to understand that. Separate lies from truth. You know, serving immigrants is legitimate. You can do it. You should do it. People, don't forget. I came to this country as an immigrant, and I tell you, the first credit card that I got, I still have it in my pocket because it gives you validation. The first loan you get, you will never forget. It opens, a pathway to prosperity. And with prosperity comes not only prosperity for that immigrant, for his family, her family, for the community. Immigrants have made this country. So when we hear all this nonsense about immigrants, I want us Canadians to understand and say, we don't buy that. Our members were immigrants at some point. All of our members, most of your families were immigrants at some point. Let's not forget that. That's part of our identity of who we are.
Yep. Thank you. Plenty to cuss about. Thank you, sir. Maria, what's making you cuss? What do you know?
So Brandy was asking, what's your favorite cuss word? I don't cuss in English because of my accent. It just sounds really funny when I cuss. And in Spanish, I only have a few that I cuss, but I'm not gonna say them right now. I kind of want to follow up on what Pablo was talking about. One of the things, and I serve on the board with NALCUP, the Latino group, and we have a community chat group. And when all these raids started happening, a lot of the credit unions started commenting in there that, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna step back from doing IT lending. I think this is the time to step forward and start doing more IT lending. I think a lot of credit unions are scared that these people are gonna take off and they're not gonna pay. But trust me, they'll be back. They'll come back. Even if they deport them, because they're so used to our system in the US. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know you were talking about IT lending, and this has been a big issue on the chat group, on the community chat group. So one of the things that I learned as a CEO is I used to do my budgets. I have an accounting degree. I used to do my budgets, and I would always look for the bottom line, because you want to report to your board and have a good bottom line, and you want to tell the world that your strategic plan and your budget has a good bottom line. But I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that many years ago, and what I concentrated on was working on programs. What programs are going to work for my community? And when I started doing that, we started doing programs such as the VITA program, the financial counseling to members and non-members in our community. And we were the only ones in the area. And because of that, my income started growing because I concentrated so much on serving others versus making sure that I had a bottom line. So one of the advice that I would give each of you is that when you're working on your budget, when you're working on your business plan, don't concentrate so much on how much money you want to make, but concentrate on the services, on the programs, because that's what makes credit unions so unique. And that's why you start going and looking for programs that are gonna benefit your community. I live in Texas. We serve 13 rural counties, and most of them are underserved, and the majority of them are considered low-income communities. Therefore, I have a tough job because I want to make sure that those people that were not banked are being banked. And sometimes we fight, the biggest fight that we have in our community is with payday lenders, because there's 30 of them when there's only one credit union in my community. So we have to continue fighting in order for us to bring the services to them. You start programs, you start services, you also become very innovative at what else can you do within the industry, within the system. And that's where several organizations that I've become part of have become very successful, one of them being NALCUP, which is our Latino group, but also CULA, which is our Women's Leadership Alliance group for small credit unions. So and Linda's here. But I think it's important that you get involved in doing things like that. Don't sit back and relax. This is not a time to relax. This is a time for us to be out there and making sure that we're making a difference. I think that's so important.
Thank you so much for your leadership and your wisdom. Miriam, what's making you cuss?
Yes, absolutely. Well, what happens when you get 3 Latino immigrants on a panel? We're bound to talk about immigrants and Latinos. I'm honored to be here. Great to see everyone. I am now in the space of helping credit unions serve our Latino community. And a few things I want to share with you today. One, talking about the immigrant situation today, the spotlight on our immigrant community. Back to the question on relevance. Right now, we have an opportunity to be relevant to the communities that you're serving today. Those of you serving the immigrant population today, some reassurance, some information is very helpful right now. Right now is the time to act, to provide that awareness of, one, you as a credit union partner, a community partner for them, to share resources on where folks can go. This is impacting a variety of families, undocumented, not documented, mixed status households. This could be impacting some of your employees today. So provide awareness of basic things like potential joint ownership on accounts, looking at powers of attorney and what that could mean, referring folks to organizations where they can get additional information. But also prepare your employees to provide that information, and also look at, for example, keeping accounts private, and looking at some of the regulation and compliance behind some of this to protect your members' privacy and information. So one, the immediate opportunity to be relevant for your immigrant members today. Two, I'm going to take a step back. I'm thinking about something that really gets me fired up, is looking at how largely our credit union industry is missing the opportunity to serve the Latino market as a whole. And I would venture to say we're largely ignoring our Latino market. And this is not just Latino immigrants. This is not just Latino ITIN holders. This is the entire Latino market, over 65 million people. If we think about financial services spend from the Latino market, it's grown at twice the rate of that of non-Latino white the non-Latino white market. It is growing fast, and this is spend on financial services. How much of that is going to credit unions? A dismal amount. McKinsey is projecting that by the year 2030, the Latino financial services revenue will total $265 billion. $265 billion. Today, it's already at $170 billion. Credit unions have a very small portion of this. And the kicker, number 3, is that Latinos need and want our services as an industry. So back to relevance, this is a market you can be very relevant to. Did you know that Latinos, 55% of Latinos are dissatisfied with their financial service providers and the products and services that they are being provided today? And this is across the board. This is not just with traditional financial institutions, but alternative financial service providers as well. I mean, I can attest to that. Having become a small business owner in the last year, I really wanted to start my small business account at a credit union, and I struggled to find one that was relevant and that connected with me. I mean, I really had to shy away from going to a traditional bank until I found a credit union to work with. And I will say that the service there is still, not the best. It could be better, but I want to give that credit union a chance. Did you know that Latinos are willing to pay more for the right financial products and services that are tailored to them, that are geared to them, up to 10% more? And in having worked with some Latino small business owners today, I can tell you that they're willing to pay up to 60% more. And talking to and helping a small business owner with a business plan, he shared with me that in the last year, he took out 3 loans from an alternative financial service provider because he could not find a local community bank, a local credit union. He had to go to New York, and this was someone in Iowa. He took out probably $60,000 in loans over the course of a year and paid 50% interest on each one of those loans. 50% interest. I about fell off my chair when I heard this. And you know what he told me? I would do it again tomorrow, because it was the only way for him to get access to capital to grow his business. And he has a successful business. He's also an immigrant. I mean, growing revenue in that business, profitable business. And so, that is staggering to me. And if it's not compelling to be relevant to this market and to reach out to this market, then I really don't know what is. So tremendous opportunity to reach out to a market that wants and needs our services. So, really the question is, are we going to, as an industry, adapt and lead in this space or be left behind? Because others are chomping at the bit, and it's not in a good way. I mean, it's in a predatory way, so we can do better.
Thank you so much. And I apologize, no time for questions. Let's hear it for our experts, everyone. Thank you.